Hey everyone! So today we're going to be doing some insect investigations. Let's go! So what are insects? Well, insects are invertebrates. Invertebrates means that they don't have a backbone or an internal skeleton like you or me. If you bend your back over really around, you can feel your backbone. You can feel you have a skeleton. Insects have their skeleton on the outside of their body, called an exoskeleton. This exoskeleton helps protect them and gives their body structure and places for their muscles to attach, and it protects them by creating a hard shell. The trouble is that exoskeletons don't grow like our bones do, so they have to shed their bones. All insects shed or molt their exoskeletons as they grow. Insects also have a few other things that make them unique. They have 3 different body parts. They have their head, their thorax, and their abdomen. Those 3 body segments are found in every insect. What about some of those other creepy crawlies that don't have 3 body segments, like a roly-poly or a worm? Well, they might be considered a bug. They're not a true insect. True insects also have 3 legs on each side of their body. Don't mistake their legs for their antennas. The antennas are separate. Insects do have 2 antennas typically, but they also have 3 legs on each side, meaning they have 6 legs total. How many legs can you find on all of these creepy crawlies? You've probably seen a lot of insects and a lot of other bugs that aren't true insects. Some of the insects you've probably seen at some point are bees, flies, beetles, ants, butterflies, crickets, mosquitoes, and many other insects that have 3 body segments, 6 legs, and are an invertebrate. Some other creepy crawlies that you may or may not have seen are crabs and lobsters, scorpions, spiders, roly-polies, centipedes, worms, snails. All of those are not true insects because they don't have those 3 body segments, 6 legs, and they don't have an exoskeleton. Even though all of those were invertebrates, they don't have an internal skeleton. The creatures like the worm or the snails, they don't have a true exoskeleton to shed or molt. Now, insects are everywhere. You can find them flying around outside, underground, or even in your house. So why do we care about insects? They can be small, hard to find, and some of them might look pretty similar. So why are they special? Well, aside from being a pretty big portion of the animal kingdom, insects can impact humans in big ways. Insects can be both good and bad when they affect our communities in a variety of different ways. And insects have no control over that. That's just how they are. For example, some beneficial insects you might have seen or you might know about are pollinators, bees and butterflies who pollinate our flowers and crops to give us food, and gardens, and even trees. There's also many insects that are natural pesticides, insects that eat other insects, or maybe some other stuff that's harming our crops or other things that we have growing and building around our community. For example, ladybugs. Ladybugs love to eat aphids. And as any rosebush owner knows, aphids are quite the pest when they eat all of our flowers. Having ladybugs, another insect, can help get rid of all of your aphids without having to use any chemicals. Some other really good insects are decomposers. Beetles are really great at eating dead, decaying matter, which could be a rotten log that has fallen down from a dead tree. This helps recycle all the nutrients, and it helps clean up our environment for not only us, but for all of the other animals and plants in the ecosystem. We have also found a really great way to use insects in our medical field. Insects, like ants, can sometimes be used as sutures where they create little staples to hold our skin together if we have a cut. You can also use insects if you have a burn, because some insects, because they eat the dead decaying matter, can clear up dead skin and help us heal faster. But while there are some good insects, some insects can be harmful and impact our communities in negative ways. One example is the mosquito. They often get a bad rep because they can cause disease. As they go from person to person, they can spread diseases from blood. That's their diet. That's what they're best able to eat, and it's not their fault that they spread disease. Other insects that might cause a problem are critters that eat our crops or our food, like locusts or grasshoppers. They can eat an entire crop, which means that all the people depending on that crop might go hungry. Other examples that you might know of are household insects, like termites, for example. They can eat the wood structure in your house, causing it to become unstable and not safe. Even though all of these insects impact humans in a negative way, doesn't mean that they're evil. We're going to do an activity to show what I mean by that. So for this activity, we've got 3 different mouthpieces that are similar to mouthpieces you'd find in 3 different kinds of insects. We've got a sponge, a straw, and a syringe that has a small little needle-like nose opening. So what 3 insects are we going to use? We're going to use a butterfly, a housefly, and a mosquito. So the challenge for those 3 insects is to find which mouthpieces works best for their kind of food. So we've got some food over here that's going to try to get into their stomachs. So for the first insect, let's see if they can get something with a sponge. It can be something wet, or it could just be anything that would stick to a sponge. So let's see how it would get food. Looks like you'd have to get it deep under to the food so it can soak up enough of the food. And let's see how much it got. Got quite a bit of food. But it could also use its tongue for other things too, right? It could pick up some dried food as well, and that could also get into its stomach. What about this straw? I wonder what the straw would be great at getting. Liquids, most likely. You're right. But I don't think it would work quite as well as the sponge. If you just put this underwater, it doesn't pick up very much liquid, which means that its stomach doesn't get very full. But if you've ever tried this with the straw at home or maybe in a restaurant, you can cover one end and get quite a bit of liquid. And this way they could drink some of their food, maybe it's nectar or some other kind of liquid, in order to get food into their stomach. And this is relatively easy. I don't have to put much pressure on it. It has this nice big opening. It could get deep down into something, and it's a pretty easy mouth to get into small places. Now let's see, we got one other mouthpiece. We've got our syringe. And this is just a toy syringe, but it still has this small, narrow opening, which means it can go into small places, but it's better at piercing through things, like the surface of this water. So we're going to pierce the surface of this water. We're going to pull this up, pull, and we're going to suck up a bunch of whatever food this is. Let's see how much we got. That's a lot of food. I wonder what insects are for these 3 mouthpieces. What do you think? You're right. The sponge would be very similar to the housefly. It has its tongue that's got lots of little holes and pores that would be really great at soaking up liquid, but can also work at picking up dry food. This would be perfect to match a proboscis of a butterfly or another pollinator. It doesn't take very much energy or effort to pick up some of the liquid, but it also doesn't have a small hole to pierce through anything, and it doesn't hold quite as much liquid. This would be perfect to match the mosquito. Mosquitoes, for their size, can hold a surprising amount of liquid, usually blood, in their stomachs. You can actually even see it on photos. And using their little tiny nose, like a needle, they can pierce through the skin of animals and get all of their food. And that's why insects aren't necessarily evil. They have effects on us and our communities that can be good or bad, but insects are just insects, living the way that they're meant to be. And insects are pretty cool. Some insects are great at camouflaging, where their body, their exoskeleton blends in with their environment, or maybe mimics another creature that deters predators. For example, this praying mantis, its exoskeleton, including its wings, look a lot like a leaf. That camouflages it when it's on a bush, a twig, or even just the ground, because predators won't be able to see the insect. All they see is the leaf. Aside from camouflage, insects can have some other pretty cool things. For example, they've got some really cool wings and wing structures. Did you know butterfly wings actually have scales? They also have really cool eyes. Their eyes can have lots of different facets that let them see many pictures at once. Think about it. Instead of you having two eyes and you can see two images, imagine if you had hundreds of eyes. So now that we know a little bit more about insects, let's go out and see if we can find some. And if you happen to have a magnifying glass like this one, make sure you take it out with you because we want to see as many cool things about insects as we can. Just make sure to remember to always shadow over it so that way you don't harm any insects. And we are definitely going to make sure we go for catch and release on any insects that we find today. Let's go. We caught a grasshopper! If you can look really closely, you'll see he has 3 legs on each side, 2 antennae, and if I look at him from his underside, I can definitely see 3 body segments. Head, a thorax, and an abdomen. He has a long, skinny abdomen. Looks like he has 2 wings. I can see all the little veins in his wings. And if I use my magnifying glass, or if I look just really closely, I can see he camouflages with the grass. He has little yellow streaks and he's mostly brown. Now, if it was later this season, maybe like June, I bet I'd find a lot more green grasshoppers as the grass gets greener. But that's okay. He camouflages perfectly and we're gonna let him go in this catch and release. So I'm glad you guys could come join us on our insect hunt today. We caught some grasshoppers and got to see lots of cool things, and hopefully you caught some of your own. But we're gonna head on back inside and we'll see you soon. You guys did a fantastic job investigating insects and hopefully learned something new. Don't forget, there's also another investigative prompt and project prompt in the rest of this folder, along with several other activities. So I hope you have fun and have fun going bugging.